All right. Welcome, everyone, to another Imirt Inspire interview. Today's guest is Greg Rice from Double Fine. Welcome, Greg. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on. You
Yeah,
are calling me from San Francisco. So
I
we have
am.
a beautiful 8 hour
Yes.
difference.
Yeah, and not so beautiful today. Cloudy San Francisco.
I've been a few times now. It's uh,
Yeah.
it's actually a lovely, familiar climate for us in Ireland. It's pleasant.
Yeah, feels kind of the same right now.
So, um, my usual first question is, how did you find yourself in games?
Yeah. I have a weird path there, kind of a roundabout path. I had a lot of weird jobs before this that were totally unrelated, so kind of just snuck my way in. I don't know. I mean, I've been a gamer my whole life. I remember playing games as long as I can remember, through age 3 or something with Nintendo. So I've always been a huge fan of games and played as much as I could get my hands on, and really just tried to like dissect the crap out of them. But I grew up in the Midwest in like the late 80s, early 90s. So at the time, there just wasn't a lot of opportunity for games jobs. And
Whereabouts is
I,
that?
I grew up in Iowa, right in the middle of the country. So yeah, there really wasn't a scene there at the time. Now there's starting to be one. But I didn't think that there was a real career in them. I always wanted to do something like that, but just kind of assumed that they were made in, like by magic or something. I don't know. So I tried to, I would say I tried to go a more sensible route, but I didn't. I went to school originally for music and was like a performance major, doing a lot of like musical theater and opera and things like that. So totally unrelated, except I guess it's the arts. So I had a bit of an arts background.
But you were performing?
Yeah, yeah,
Cool.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And that's something that I like, started doing in elementary school, junior high, and just was passionate about and liked doing. And it kind of took over in high school. I started doing just a ton of it, and so I had a hard time seeing that stopping, and just jumped right into that in college. But then took like kind of another detour, I guess. And I got super involved in a children's charity organization for kids with cancer in college, and then ended up diverting and going into medical school. So kind of the opposite end of the spectrum. And Went to med school. I finished all of my classes. I was kind of in the period where it was supposed to be like rotations and residency and things like that. And I could just feel it wasn't right. It wasn't
The start
scratching the itch that I was hoping it would.
the start of the
Uh,
long journey to becoming a doctor.
yeah. Spent a lot of time and a lot of money getting to where I got. And then eventually just kind of threw my hands up and was like, I gotta find something else. And the nice thing was with med school, they give you kind of like, you can take sabbaticals like that where you can take a year off, and then if you want to come back, you can. So it felt like a nice little safety net. But I was like, at that point, I had started to see kind of the indie scene bubbling up from video game scene, and also just you started hearing more and more about the developers behind the games and who's making these games, how they were made. And I was just kind of a super avid fan,
When
reading everything I could and
when
watching
was that? Around
podcasts.
mid 2000s ish?
Yeah, early 2000s, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, so I guess like towards the end of my high school career is when I started playing. Well, I've been playing Tim's games, but Grim Fandango was the one that really kind of hooked me, and it was like, oh man, these things can be such artistic works, and they can be, come from really strong creative voices, and it was starting to really excite me. And then throughout college and the early 2000s, I started seeing what was happening in the indie scene and how easy it was, relatively easy, I guess, compared to how it was before, for a small team of young people to just kind of get out a weird idea of their own that's doing something that's never been seen before. And it just felt like such a exciting new frontier to be a part of. So I kind of just picked up and drove out to California trying to find something with like no goal, or I mean no lead, but I guess a goal in sight of trying to figure out something in games.
Where'd you land?
Force my way to make it work. Yeah, so I went to LA first, actually. So I lived in LA for like 3, 4 years. And like right when I got there, I just started applying at everything I possibly could. Obviously, I didn't have any experience in games, but like had a lot of passion and could speak well about what I liked about games and everything. And so why I kind of tried to look around, I took a job testing at Activision, working on like early Guitar Heroes and Rock Bands,
Yeah.
just hammering away on bugs. And it was in retrospective a good game to be a tester on, just because I was like an expert level tester, so I wasn't just like hammering over the same thing. I was basically just playing through the game and trying to perfect it every day. So it wasn't like the most boring testing job.
Did you use the fact that you were already trained musically?
Yeah, exactly. So that was something I could put on my resume, I guess. But I did that for like a year while I kept applying for like production jobs, anything that I could find that like didn't need a technical background, I guess. And eventually the thing that came up was like a totally out of left field opportunity that is what really kind of springboarded everything for me. And I took a job as assistant to Seamus Blackley at CAA, a talent agency in LA. And that was kind of my big foot in the door with everything. So it's something that I don't think a lot of people realize.
They worked with games?
Yeah. So I don't think a lot of people realize that that's a thing that happens in games. But the agency I was at, Creative Artists Agency, is like the biggest talent agency in Hollywood. So they are more known for like their film clients. They would represent like the Steven Spielberg and Meryl Streep and folks like that.
Yeah.
But they also have like a music department that represents Radiohead, and a sports department that had like LeBron at the time. And then I was in the video game department. So we like at the time it was Seamus Blackley, like I said, who was the co-creator of the Xbox. And he was just always a big advocate for developers and their rights and trying to get them good deals and letting them retain their IP and things like this. And he was representing a lot of just kind of the larger talent in the AAA space at the time.
So talent?
Folks like Will Wright.
Okay, yeah.
Insomniac guys and Tim. And so that's how I met Tim. At the time, Seamus was helping figure out a deal for Brutal Legend after it got dropped by Activision and Vivendi. I guess that was like, I went from Iowa med school boy to just like thrust into the middle of Hollywood and thrust into the middle of like all of the creators that I've known and loved for years, and just kind of like right there in the middle of some big video game deals and learning about how those things got done. So it was a really exciting time, and I don't know, I kind of feel like I snuck in the back door, but
that's a good training for what you do now. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But also, you were right, a very roundabout way.
For sure. Yeah.
So your job title now, right? It's VP of Business.
It is, yeah. I guess right. Yeah, a lot of the stuff I'm doing now is more related to what I was doing at CAA. So signing deals for Double Fine, like the Psychonauts 2 Starbreeze deal, and doing other things to find money for the studio, like the crowdfunding campaigns that we've done. But yeah, I guess the nice thing about Double Fine was it's a really flat company where people are able to kind of pitch in where they have strengths, and everybody kind of can be contributing in various ways to their games. And so it was a good way for me to kind of learn from the ground up development. And I've been here for 7 years now and had lots of roles within the company. I started more on the production end of things. And the biggest first project I worked on would have been Iron Brigade, where it was kind of a combination of assistant producer role, but also I did a lot of the writing on that game and a lot of the scripting and design. So I really started being able to get hands-on with the games, which is exciting.
Yeah.
And then kind of started moving my way towards some PR marketing stuff and doing kind of the first like community management things here at Double Fine with, like organizing our booths at PAX and putting together trailers and things like that, to where now I guess I do a little bits of those and bits of business and, touch in with the production guys as well from time to time. But it's been exciting to kind of really get to see from the inside how everything gets done and be a part of many different roles of game development.
By how many people are in Double Fine these days?
We've always been about the same, so between 50 and 60. It's, I guess since Psychonauts, the studio's been about the same makeup, and we have a lot of people who have been here for 17 years. The entire time been around, but there's a lot of new fresh faces coming on for Psychonauts 2 also. But yeah, I don't know, it's gone through some changes where in the early years it was, all 50, 60 people of those pointed at a big game like Brutal Legend or Psychonauts, but then we split up into smaller teams, so it was like 4 or 5 teams of 10 people. But now we're kind of coalescing again into, Psychonauts being the big project that most of the team is working on right now.
So I was reading a bit about that. You'd have been there for this, I think, when Brutal Legend was headless for a while, waiting for a publisher or looking for a publisher to take it over. You guys wanted to work on something, so you started Amnesia Fortnite then, right?
Yeah, so I was at CAA at the time, so I was part of that deal and setting it up, and not at Double Fine. But then I was part of, pitching around those first games that came out of Amnesia Fortnite. So yeah, we've done like 5 or 6 of those now, and it's
part
super
of setting
exciting.
up that publisher deal for Brutal Legend was they also bought you.
uh, it wasn't part of the deal, but it was secretly my deal. I was always hoping to get over to a development studio, and Double
Cool.
Fine was definitely top of the list. I've been a huge fan of Tim and the studio since they started making games, so I knew it was a place that I would be excited to be. But yeah, it was after that. I guess I was still around. So yeah, kind of the major deals at CA would have been that, and then the last one was going on when I left was Respawn's deal when the Call of Duty guys left Activision and went over to start Respawn and Titanfall. But yeah, I think I was just using CA as an opportunity to like meet developers, meet people in the press and the industry, just get to know folks and get my face out there and just learn about how the industry works, the types of deals that are done in video game development. And then ultimately, as a bridge to getting me kind of inside the studio where I'm actually seeing games getting made and being able to contribute to their development.
So around that time, felt like Double Fine started doing things a little differently, started working on more than one project, was looking for a way to not be so dependent on publishers.
Mm-hmm.
There was a few different things that I think are interesting. So one, we just started talking about it there. Amnesia Fortnite, the idea of doing in-house game jams, essentially. It's something I love. I think it's a
Yep.
really great way of knocking out ideas and seeing what's actually fun.
Yeah, we love it too. I think that a lot of people who come here come because they're excited about the possibility of pitching for Amnesia Fortnite. But it's always just such a nice break because game development is very hard and you get wrapped up in lots of big problems and it can be stressful in the middle of a project. So it's nice to kind of set it aside and get back to the fun parts at the beginning of the project where you're just brainstorming and coming up with crazy ideas and things are showing up on screen really quickly. And it's also fun because people are able to kind of take a different role too. So somebody who might be, programmer gets to, potentially like write or do something that's like a little bit different than what their day to day is and try out a new skill, which is exciting. And it always has turned out to have really interesting projects. I'm always amazed what we can get done in 2 weeks.
A lot
And
of
a lot of those have gone on to become real big
yes,
games.
yeah, quite a few games. Like I'd
Yeah,
say
I've
at
lost
least
count.
8 games over the last 5 years from you guys have
Yeah,
been
I
spawned
believe
out of
it.
that.
And we just did another one recently, and it was great. They've moved to becoming public too now, so people can
Yes,
actually work that process and play the prototypes that came out of it. And I think just like within a week, we just put them all up on Steam. So
and you
you can
get
now
people
watch
to
these kind of like
vote
10
on
part
concepts and stuff.
documentaries, and then play the games.
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So, do people form their own teams, or do you have a process for pitching ideas and forming teams, or is it just
Yeah,
loose?
it's dark magic. No,
A year-long negotiation.
Yeah, exactly. Anybody can pitch that wants to. And then we make, I guess in the last 3 years, we've made public videos like showing off the ideas and allowed our community to kind of vote on which ones we end up making. And then from the time that they're chosen, there's internal processes that happen. So everybody gets to vote on which projects they would like to work on. All the project leads get to pick the people that they would like to have on their team, and then we just have this big spreadsheet that we're matching people up and trying to give the leads the people that they want and also the people that they want their top project or two. So
So it's pretty structured then. It's not just total free for all. Everyone running
yeah,
around.
I guess that part is. And then it's 2 weeks of madness and people run around like crazy.
Is it the same time every year?
Nah, I mean, it should be. It'd be nice. It's hard to always find time, but we try to figure out a way to schedule it around like major milestones and releases so that we're not taking a big chunk out of anybody's schedule right
Because
when.
I'd say it's difficult. Certain years you'll find you're way busier than others.
Yeah. I'd imagine it'll be easier next time. It was always hard when we had like 5 or 6 projects going and one was shipping while one was hitting alpha while one was starting. So it's just like, where do you find that
Yeah.
time? We're busy. But now that the majority of folks are on Psychonauts, it'll be easier to find a good time for it.
Then the Psychonauts people will get angry.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Maybe not. Like they're always excited about it. It's just a matter of like, don't have it happen like when we're about to ship or have a big milestone. So
Yeah.
if it's like right after they hit alpha or beta or something, maybe that's a really good time to kind of take a breather and refresh.
So I want to talk to you about Kickstarter.
Sure.
So you guys broke a record on Kickstarter with Double Fine Adventure back in about 2012, I think, was the biggest game Kickstarter at the time. And the idea there was, can we make a niche game that publishers won't pay for?
Hmm.
And now it seems kind of funny because you raised so much money and it was so successful.
Yeah, that was a crazy out of left field thing that we were not prepared for. Yeah, it was something Tim and I had been talking about for a long time. Just the idea of like, we saw Kickstarter, we saw projects get funded on that. Is it something that could finance a game the size of Double Fine makes? We're kind of keeping an eye on it for a
Because
while.
it kind of wasn't, right? You know, the
Yeah, no.
the amounts of money being raised before you guys were not game budgets that you guys
Exactly.
need.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of it was something that 1 or 2 people could definitely make a game with, but it's, these kind of sub $100,000 budgets, which just don't go very far with a team of 60 people in San Francisco. So we just,
Say
the
that's
games that
about
we make are a little bit
1
larger
month.
budget games. And so at the time, that is why we kind of weren't pulling the trigger on it for a while. But then eventually the Two Play Productions guys came to us. So they had just done a documentary for Minecraft on Kickstarter that had gotten like $300,000 or something. And they came to us asking about doing a documentary on Double Fine. And, we saw that amount. We're like, ooh, actually, that is closer to something we could do a small game with. Because around that time, we're starting to look at mobile and having these like 1 or 2 person teams
Yeah.
doing mobile games like Middle Manager of Justice.
Yep.
So, we started talking to them about it, and we liked the guys and the work they'd done before. And the more we talked, it just kind of became clear that if we were going to do a documentary, it would really need to be on a self-published project, just because it was
So
a
that you could
challenge.
have full access, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. Didn't want to have struggles between a publisher who was potentially worried about things they might say. We wanted them to have full access and transparency in the documentary. So, the goal that we set was 400,000, and 3 of that was to make the game, and 1 was to make the doc. And the idea was it was going to be like Tim and an artist and maybe a programmer, and this tiny like 3 or 4 person team was going to
And
come out
even if it
small.
didn't work out, it would still be a good documentary, right?
Exactly.
Failure
Yeah.
can be
So
fun there.
It just, kind of gets back to what I was talking about before, where we just felt like there weren't a lot of resources for people who are interested in game development to learn how games are made. And it felt like a way to show them behind the scenes, warts and all, of a little tiny game getting made. But as soon as we threw it out there, I think there was just so much pent-up demand for an adventure game from Tim and so much nostalgia for the LucasArts stuff that it just exploded.
And it was just kind of the tipping point for Kickstarter, too. It was just growing at the right time.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we hit 1 million in a day, and the final was like 3.3, which was totally unexpected, and it really shifted our expectations of what the game could be and should be. And then, you're right. Like we saw after that, a lot of other $1 million plus Kickstarters come to light and hit hard. So it was exciting to see that this was a new potential route of people being able to go directly to their fans and get the finances they need. As people who have, Tim has had pretty rocky history with publishers in the past before that. Games, both Psychonauts and Brutal Legend, the first 2 games that Double Fine did, being dropped by their publisher midway through development, having to find a new publisher to finish them. So it was nice to see that there were alternatives coming up to the traditional game development financing model.
So when that closed, I guess you guys thought maybe we don't need publishers. Maybe we don't need the big publishers anymore, and it's not really true. I think for
Yeah, I
your
mean,
size
I
of
don't know.
company.
That was the thought as much as we can be a bit more choosy about the publishers that we work with, because there were publishers popping up that were doing really developer-friendly deals and starting to, really value the creative teams and have that reflected in their deals.
And
Uh,
from the
and
other
I think
side,
now that there's an amount of money that can come from outside of publishing, just to allow us to be a little bit more picky about the people that we do work with.
and it was a bit of a turning point, I think. We essentially digital downloads. You didn't need to have a box in a shop anymore. You kind of weren't beholden to
Yeah.
the partnerships that publishers had, big publishers.
Yeah, I mean that was the big thing that springboarded the entire indie movement was just
Yeah.
the ability to get your stuff out there directly to your fans, and it's continued to just help grow that space over the years.
So, do you think Kickstarter is the best way to raise money for your game? If you're smallish, let's say you're a team of 5 people making a game, not 60.
Sure. I think it is a way, and I think there's a lot of different ways to raise money for a project, and it's going to depend on the game and the needs of the developer. And yeah, this is kind of a talk I do give a lot, where people are asking, how to get financing for their games, and I think it's just like I said, it depends on the amount of money you need. It depends on, Kickstarter and crowdfunding, things like this. You really need to have either like a strong story about who you are and what the game is and why you need to make it, or have like a really nice video showing the game off, and that's something that just needs development time. And so people aren't always going to be in that position. It also demands a lot of community management, and that was a thing that it really kind of sparked internally here at Double Fine, is like our self-publishing wing of the studio just really grew at that time to be able to keep all the backers in the loop about what was happening and just provide them with content to show how development's going. And that's not something that everybody is like willing to take on. I think there are ways to manage your Kickstarter without as the level of transparency that we gave, but it is a part of it. But I mean, there's angel investors that can be good money with good deal terms without taking away all of your rights. And some people, I think, also just would like to have the help and expertise a publisher can bring with promoting their game and marketing their game, the services that they can bring as far as testing and localization. So I think it's just it's exciting that there's more ways than just going to a traditional publisher who's going to own your IP and take the majority of the royalties to get your game done these days.
I feel like Double Fine has really explored the different avenues. So I think you've done investor deals with non-game people. You've done crowdfunding. You've done big publishers. You've done smaller publishers. You've done indie fund, just essentially a loan from successful indies. That's obviously something you guys spend a lot of time on.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's just Tim is encouraging people to think outside the box and be creative in every field here at Double Fine, both with the games that we make, but also with our business dealings. And so I think we just see the kind of flexibility that a lot of these startups have around us here in San Francisco, and just want to try to take the pieces of that seem beneficial, which are trying out new things, moving quickly, experimenting with potential different routes of financing and developing games. And yeah, I think we've learned a lot over the years about what's worked well with each of them and the strengths and weaknesses of all of these things. And I think we continue to dip into each of these things, and we'll return to all of those potentials depending on the game and what these games need.
Do you find that that's largely your job these days, is that side of things? Big deals, looking for money, that kind of stuff?
It's become more of my day-to-day.
I don't mean in the couch.
Sure. Yeah, well, I'll take it where I can get it. No, I think it's become more of my focus for sure. But yeah, I mean, I also manage the publishing wing, so all of the folks over here who are dealing with like our community PR marketing, our sales and promotions, and then also in the last 3 4 years, our external publishing with Double Fine Presents. So
Let's talk about
uh,
that. That's really
sure,
interesting. So not only
yeah,
are you obviously making a lot of your own projects, you're now partnering with indies for Double Fine Presents.
yeah.
Um, and the way I understand it, it's more like you're going to use your expertise and connections and help, but not necessarily fund games.
Yeah, I think that's where it started. We have moved to where we're financing games now too.
Cool.
Yeah, it's kind of starting to grow into a big boy publisher, I guess. But yeah, like you said, it kind of had very humble grassroots kind of beginnings, and that was just because we try to take things slowly and let them grow organically. And yeah, I think it's just a matter of trying to find and identify developers who are doing interesting things that we feel like need to have a spotlight shine on them. Things that are kind of unique and innovative and are kind of pushing the boundaries of games, but also just creators that we're excited about working with, and teams that we think show real potential. And we've done now like I lose track of
It's
the past,
about
but
5 or 6, I think.
5 or 6 games. And it's a really exciting part of it for me because it just means I get to travel around and meet people and play games and look for things that just spark my interest and feel like they're deserving of an audience.
And they're
And then
quite
it's just
they're
once we've done that, it's trying to treat them as if they're a Double Fine game and presenting them and publishing them in the same way that we would something like a Broken Age, and just using all of our PR marketing muscle and anything else that these games might need. We do have kind of the more grassroots indie way of providing publisher services like testing and things like that to these projects.
and you're working with teams that are pretty small. So I was exhibiting beside Gang Beasts
Yeah,
before they signed with you, and there it was I think it's three brothers, maybe
yeah.
a fourth person working with them.
Hmm.
Um, and I'd say that's pretty typical.
Yeah, I think Ganges is actually one of the larger teams we've worked with, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, it's it's people who at the beginning, like you said, it was mostly people who were already financed either through Kickstarter or their own means, who just needed a little bit of support and guidance throughout development, and then a big push around the release. But yeah, like I said, now we are financing games. So things in our next round, like Ooblets and Knights and Bikes, are games that we put a bit of financing towards, and we try to get to where we're working with projects a little bit earlier on as well, just so we can be, playing builds early and providing feedback and seeing where we can kind of slot in and help, find ways to, benefit the games as well. And yeah, I guess we've worked with a lot of different sizes and a lot of teams from kind of all over the world, including an Irish developer. We
Yeah,
worked with David O'Reilly
twice now.
on Mountain and everything.
Yeah, he's based in LA, right?
He is, yeah. So
How did he pitch Mountain to you?
well,
It's this
Mountain was a
game
little
that
bit
you
of
don't get to do anything in.
well, yeah, you play as a mountain. Yeah. So we were just big fans of David's animation. Yeah, he
Yes,
grew up
yeah.
in Ireland doing short films, and everybody here was just blown away by that stuff. And I actually don't remember how we got in touch. I think it might have been through Penn Ward, the Adventure Time creator.
Yeah, because he was
But
doing. Yeah, yep. He did
yeah, we just
Amnesia Fortnite with you.
yeah, he did. Yeah, that's right. But we just hit it off with David right away, and we're always excited about, like I said, just games that feel like they're doing something new and new voices. And he definitely felt like coming from outside of the industry, he was bringing a lot of new ideas. So for Mountain, he was further along. The game was, in a state where it could be shown, and I could kind of just grasp what he was trying to do. And I just found it really beautiful, and I found it really interesting. And I knew that he was somebody that we wanted to try to help deliver that game. And then, so as soon as that came out and it did much better than we expected, we were ready to jump back in on whatever he had next. And the everything pitch was the crazier one, where it was
Okay.
like that he pitched to us before anything was done, purely just on paper, and it just sounded like the biggest, craziest game I'd ever heard, and like something that nobody from the game industry would ever try to tackle, just because of the
It's
scope
too
and
much.
magnitude.
Yeah.
Uh, but I just could tell he was passionate and had it figured out because he's a really smart guy. And so let him run with it, and he just came back, and basically the final game was exactly what he had pitched to us, and it's amazing. And I'm super proud of the work he's done. And
I saw
it's
it.
like,
I saw it at the space you guys set up at GDC.
oh, that MoMA.
Yeah. So you set up
Yeah, yeah,
space
yeah.
and showcase games, not just your games, just
Oh, at Day of the Dev space.
yes.
Yeah, yeah. That's right. Yeah. No, that's a cool thing we do for sure. Yeah, so that was.
Let's come back to that, okay? I want to talk
Yeah,
more
sure.
about Double Fine Presents just for a minute. But I've written down Day of the Devs. I want to talk about that in a minute.
Sure, sure.
So,
But,
Double Fine Presents. If someone listening now is making something, how do they pitch it to you?
we have an email alias. It's just indies@doublefine.com,
Cool.
and you can just email me there. I get 3 or 4 submissions a day, so there's like 1,000 a year that come in.
That is a
They're
lot.
tiny, so
Yeah.
we do like 3 or 4. Like right now, we just shipped a bunch. So we just shipped Nog, everything, and soon to ship Gang Beasts. But we have Knights and Bikes and Ooblets on the slate for next year, and then we will be looking soon for a few more. So we have to be pretty choosy about them, but I do look at everything that comes over and I try to provide feedback to the ones that look like they're heading in a good direction. But yeah, if you just email me at Indies, I think it's always nice to see materials. So
Yeah, that's my next question. What stage should it be a bit like
Sure.
Kickstarter, quite polished, or earlier?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is hard to gauge until there's like something on screen. So I do always like to see video or a demo, but
Yeah.
I mean, it's never really to start the conversation and just introduce yourself and then swing back once you've got that stuff. But I think it's always more of a continued conversation than anything. But yeah, it's always great to be able to play something for sure. Yeah.
I think, generally speaking, everyone I know who's making games at this level, at the level that you would be looking for, I think for Double Fine Presents, tend to have something playable really early. People approach it like game jams where it's always playable.
Yeah, and the video is really like a thing that's just eye-catching right away to like take a quick glance at and see, because there's a lot of like amateur hobbyist stuff that comes through, or mobile games that just really don't feel like they're a fit that you can just judge right away. And so I think a video or something like that is something that can just cut to the chase a little bit quicker. And then if it's something that looks like it's interesting, then I definitely would want to see it build and play it.
Okay. So if anyone's watching this, if you have something super interesting, get in touch with Greg
Yes,
for Double Fine Presents.
please, at Double Fine.
Maybe we'll just ask David O'Reilly to pitch our projects to you for us.
Yeah, he's a good show, man. He's a good picture. Yeah, and we are working on like new website overhaul and things, so that we'll have like a more clear portal for.
I was just looking at your website and marveling at its old-fashionedness.
Yes, it was built a very long time ago, like maybe 15 years ago, when the internet was but a baby. So
okay,
that'll change eventually.
Let's talk about Day of the Devs then. When did you start putting that on?
Well, this year will be our 5th year, actually, so almost 5 years ago.
And why?
Yeah. Well, again, I think there's just like this goal of one of the goals at Double Fine is to, demystify game development, but also just support the game development scene. And it just felt like that was something that was missing here in San Francisco at the time, was just a show that was open to fans, that let developers interact directly with fans. And that's the kind of thing that you see at PAX, and it's kind
become
of the thing
very
that's
big.
exciting about going to these shows, is just being able to actually interface with the people who play our games. And I guess the first year it kind of came up because we were doing the Broken Age stuff. Kickstarter was live, so we were at a point where we were kind of ready to show the game off for the first time and wanted to do it to our hardest core fan base. We wanted to be able to invite all of the backers to come check it out. And so we just knew we would need a large space to be able to house that, and more space than we could fill with just that game. So we just put out kind of invitations to other local developers and friends of ours who were doing interesting things that we'd be proud to show our games alongside. And yeah, the first year I think we had like 10 or 12 games, and over 1,000 people came. So it just felt like a really exciting atmosphere, one that was really um, friendly and really kind of like championing interesting artistic games. And it's just really grown and grown every year since then, to where last year we had I think over 60 games and there was 5,000 attendees. So it's been cool to be able to like
It's
curate this
crazy,
list
yeah.
of games. And I think that's one of the big differences, is that we really handpick every single one, and try to have a wide spectrum of genres represented and art styles represented from a lot of different types of developers. And we're kind of in the process now of starting to think about that for this year.
Um, it's very busy. I tried to go in and it was too full this year.
Oh, did this last year?
Yeah, earlier this year.
Oh, for GDC.
Yeah, at GDC.
So that's a new thing that's kind of grown out of it. So yeah, I guess the major event is every year in November here, and it's on actually Day of the Dead. That's why it's called
Okay,
Day of the Dead.
cool. Yeah.
Yes, that's where the name comes from. And yeah, we have 60 games in a huge space in a venue, and it's free for fans to come. It's free for developers to show their games. We just seen as an indie developer how difficult it can be to set up a booth at places like PAX, just because of
So
all the work
expensive.
involved in sourcing everything you'll need for the booth, dealing with unions, dealing with the convention space. And so we really want to try to make a show that stripped all of that away and made it really easy for developers to just slide in and show their games. So we handle all of the equipment and all of the setup and just take their builds for them and load them up on the machine to where they can just kind of walk in and enjoy the day. And then, yeah, I guess 2 years ago, GDC came to us and asked if we wanted to curate a little space for the show floor GDC. So that's kind of like a little mini, smaller version of it, where we have like 10 or 12 games there on the floor for people to kind of wander in and check out.
That one, sorry, is actually where I saw everything the first time. Very
Yeah.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a cool one. That's a new one. We do that, and then we also show all of the games during the week at the Draft House here, the Alamo Draft House in San Francisco, on the big screen, so people can order food and drinks and watch all of them.
Which is a movie theater, right?
It is, yeah, yeah. So
That must
giant,
be a crazy experience.
it's amazing. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Especially seeing games like those games that are so beautiful up on that giant screen. And then this year we actually expanded. I've been working on the advisory board of SF MoMA, so we also worked with them to put together a little curated space during GDC this year. And that's what I thought you were talking about at first, because everything had this weird space there.
And
where there
everything
was
had a showcase there as well, yeah.
Yeah.
Everything was
Well,
everywhere.
Everything was everywhere, yeah.
It's very hard to talk about a game called Everything.
I know, it worked out in our favor. When we first pitched the name, I was like, that's brilliant. It's also crazy. But I think a lot of people, told us, like, how are people
we
going to
gonna
find
search
this
for it?
game on Google and things like that? But if you Google everything, it shows up on the front page. So
There
it
was
worked
a
out. It also just makes for so many weird conversations where you have to clarify what you're talking about, and I think it helps people remember. what
I
the game's
saw a Steam sale like announcement that said everything 50% off.
Yeah.
And there was like a storm of comments saying, I don't see everything for, on discount. No, it's just this game called Everything.
Yeah. I want to steal that naming technique for every game we do.
Something.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay, cool. So, if you think about, I guess kind of what my job is these days is I think of myself as a game director, but it's also producer because I'm essentially trying to find money for our company to keep going. But at a much smaller level, I think, than you guys. And it feels like there's a lot of avenues that you could be pursuing. So Steam is an obvious one, consoles, mobile. How do you guys decide where to focus?
Yeah, I mean,
Free to play is a huge business opportunity that I don't think you guys have gone near.
we have tried it. Yeah, we tried everything. We did Middleman of Justice on mobile.
Oh,
and that
yes,
was free to
okay.
play. Yeah, it comes down to a lot of factors. I guess first being the game. I think that we always start with an idea, and a lot of times that kind of informs where it's going to live. especially if we're talking about new technologies like VR and things like that. But I think also just with the design and the mechanics, making a mobile game is very different than making a console game.
Mm.
And I guess we just also have a lot of PC console gamers here, and the history of our company is just more in kind of 3D console-based games. And so a lot of the success that we've found has been on console and PC, but for certain games like point and clicks are translate really well to touch. So we've had good success with things like Broken Age on iPad, and like playing games there as well. Free to play, I think, is one thing we dipped into and pretty quickly realized that might not be our strengths. So much of our development team is focused on the creative aspects of games, and we just don't have a lot of people who find joy in monetization strategies and things like that. So I think more and more we personally are looking at console, PC, and touch when the game makes sense for it. VR is something we've dipped into, and I think we're always excited about new technologies just as a new creative playground to be in. But we're also always kind of trying to be hesitant and smart about the decisions that we make, and evaluating those the platforms and their potential for success. But yeah, I think
it doesn't feel like VR is there. Certainly not right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's just going to take a while, right? Like, and we'll see if people stick around and let it grow and blossom. But yeah, I think the numbers are fairly low right now as far as software sales, but it's early days and it takes time. So I think we're keeping an eye on it. But yeah, right now we're just totally focused on Psychonauts, which is, console PC title. Yeah, I mean, you can make it work everywhere, and it's probably more of a matter of like what you're passionate about, what kind of games you want to be making, and for who. Because yeah, it's true. A lot of people make good money in free to play and good money in mobile. It's just harder to stand out in that crowd of so many games, and it's hard to compete with the people doing big free-to-play mobile games, which is the amount of money they're able to pour into them.
I find the marketing money quite daunting there. That would kind of scare me off the whole sector. I'm not willing to go find that money or to try and compete against it.
Yeah.
So when this probably kind of applies to your Double Fine Presents games. So when you have a game made by a smaller team, like Double Fine Presents, how can they stand out? How do you get them noticed? How do you get people writing about them? How do you ultimately get, fans buying them?
Yeah. It really starts with the game. And that's what the thing is for me is I feel like we've released so many games and promoted so many games, and that's the thing I'm not worried about. I do try to, there is a problem in there, which is like trying to figure out the unique way to promote this game that is going to feel different than every game, and things that you can do that other games wouldn't be able to do. But ultimately, the game has to be the thing that jumps out at people and stands out. And I think for a variety of reasons, and it could be, the art is unlike any game you've ever seen. It's just beautiful in its own way that is, reflective of its artist's style. I think there's mechanical things that are still being explored. There's so many things that haven't been done in games yet. So every year you're going to find things that are doing something that you've never seen before from a mechanics perspective. And then it was easier back in the day to stand out on one of those. But I feel like more you kind of need to do a little bit of all of them, and
so you have to look amazing and innovate somehow in mechanics.
Yeah, or just like have a strength in some, like it doesn't necessarily need to be innovative. Like it can be grounded in mechanics people know, but as long as it's excelling in some way and doing something better than anybody else could do, then I think there's a lot of different ways to skin it. But I think you just need to be able to look at that game's trailer or watch a Let's Play of it and feel like it's doing something that no other game is doing, or doing something other games are doing better than those other games are doing. So I think it's hard to stand out with, a D&D based RPG, just because there's so many of them that if you're going to do it, you have to be as good as the best. So it's exciting to see people taking risks these days and pushing themselves into new spaces, and that's, I think, what gets people excited about working in games.
Yep. I mean, you picked D&D RPG out of probably said puzzle platformer.
Sure.
But then, I watch a game like Hollow Knight. Did you see that?
Yeah.
And it just comes out and it's so polished
Yeah.
that it'll catch your attention. So they had big Kickstarter and a big release. So you kind of have to go to that level where you're better than everything before, or strike new ground in terms of mechanics or luck.
Yep. Yeah, it's difficult, and it's the hardest choice. Trying to figure out something that speaks to you, that is from a creator that you're excited about, that feels like it's unique and innovative, but also is going to garner people's eyeballs.
It's familiar in some way.
Yeah.
Relatable.
Yeah.
Do you help with trailers? You were talking about that earlier.
Yeah, I made our Iron Brigade trenched trailers back in the day. So used to be pretty hands-on. Now we have the 2-player production guys in house. So
wow, okay, that'll be good.
But they also have been doing all of our trailer work. So
that's amazing then.
A nice bonus to have that kind of talent inside the studio.
And when you see, when you're giving feedback to people that you're working with on, like, again, say Double Fine Presents on trailers, I mean, what do you think is the best thing to focus on there?
Yeah, I mean, that's tricky. Yeah, I mean, I think that it's one, show not tell. I think a lot of people speak too much in their trailers or throw too much text up, but I feel like you can get a lot of those points across just from finding clips of the game that relay that information on its own. I feel like a strong song is a huge part of a trailer, something that you're going to be cutting to that's rhythmic. So really starting with something that has the energy that you want to convey, and then cutting around that. There's length is always a concern. I think a lot of them are too long. You
do want to start with your logo fading in really slowly, right?
We usually have our studio logo up front and our game logo at the back. You always have to have a slate at the end about where to follow up.
Yeah.
If you'd like to find more. I mean, obviously you're on YouTube, so there can be embedded links and things like that. But platforms and things like that. Being vague on timing, I think a lot of people will commit to their timing way too early and then have to remessage that over and over again.
That's good advice. So coming eventually?
Yeah, I mean, I think starting wide, if you feel like you're pretty confident that you have a year, I think we oftentimes just stick to the year and then narrow it down as we get closer.
That's good advice.
Yeah, I think we try to have our trailers be like a minute long, maybe a minute and a half. Our teasers are more like a 30-second thing because there's just so much for people to watch on the internet these days that I don't think you can expect people to watch a 2 or 2.5 minute trailer. Yeah, I think also then just look at games that have done well that you feel like have good trailers and see what you can learn from them.
What about trailers for games that don't have a lot of action going on? So your example there, D&D RPG, where it's going to speak to the lovers of that genre. The game is going to be great. How do you get that across? It's not that flashy.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think everything's different. So you just got to find the strengths of your game and the things that will relay what it is most succinctly. And I mean, I think you have to be able to think out of the box too. I think it's always good to have a gameplay trailer that's showing gameplay and what the actual game is like. But we've done kind of funny skit-based trailers in the past that have had good success just because they're a little bit more entertaining or viral potential.
Yeah.
So I think there's different ways to stand out. A trailer is something that you definitely always need to have just because you're going to need it on your distribution platform for people to be able to watch and get a sense of what it is. But I think there's just lots of other things that can be done too from, we've had a lot of success with sharing GIFs around on social media.
I've seen that as well, like Imager and Reddit.
Yeah, it's just such an easy way for people to it doesn't have to load, it just immediately plays. It plays on mobile well, and they're shorter form. So I think it's just a good way to give someone 5 seconds of your game. And I think no one of these things is going to be the thing that gets people to buy your games. It's just people always say that you need to hear about something like 7 times or whatever before you actually register. So it's just continuing to do these, and ideally in like a concentrated period. I think a lot of indies used to go about it by saying, be everywhere and speak about your game as much as possible. And I think that that's become less and less common just because it's hard to continue to get people excited if they already know everything about your game. And so trying to think about having this condensed like 2-3 month period where you're just like ramping up the intensity of how much you're posting about the game and showing about the game so that you're really building hype around the time where people
Right up to your launch.
Yeah.
That's very good advice. Yeah. It's hard to get that
Yeah,
right.
it's tricky if you've got things like crowdfunding involved too, because those are things that where you'll need to be keeping people in the loop more frequently about what's going on. So we've had to figure out ways to kind of straddle that line and focus more on the development side of things with our crowdfunding updates, so that we can save kind of like big exciting
Content
looks
stuff
at the game,
for
larger opportunities.
That is difficult actually. You have two different types of customer there. People who they don't
Yeah.
even hear about it until it's available, and there's people
Yeah,
who
that
want the
was a-
minutiae of development.
That was a big learning lesson with Broken Age. Was just that you kind of do have to have two separate plans because the needs of the community are so much different than the needs of the press. And so I think we've tried to get better with that with each project we've done. And Psychonauts is going to be a good test of like, can we hold enough back to where we can still do like a big unveil at E3 or something like that,
Yeah.
but keep our fans engaged enough and aware of what's happening with teams so they don't feel like we're just spinning out of control or have no idea what we're doing.
Super. I think we'll wrap up there in a minute, but this has been really
Sure.
interesting. So thanks so much for sharing all this information and knowledge. And
Sure.
I'm sure we'll get a few Irish games over to you
I
in
hope
the next
so.
few months. We have some cool stuff.
Awesome. Well, thanks for
Um,
having me. It's been fun.
Yeah, so thanks everyone for tuning in. Thanks, Greg, for taking part. Thank you so much. Taking time out of your day to chat to us. I'll be putting this up on YouTube later on and sharing with our membership. Thanks so much, everyone.